Well, guys, welcome back to Futsal News live. Most importantly, we are here with. Whoops, sorry, getting some feedback. We are here with Richard Ward, Wardy as he's known on the court, and he is going to join us here shortly before he goes off on a European adventure to the Champions League. So we're going to talk to him a little bit about the journey to get here and how they qualified for this contest. Learn a little bit about him as well, and then get right into the juicy stuff and talk about the challenges ahead. So, Wardy, thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to the stream.
Thanks, Jake. Great to be here. Sorry I'm not deep in an aquarium like you are.
Oh, that's okay. Trust me, it's for the better. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and personally, your and how you got into futsal?
Sure thing. So, Richard Ward, been playing futsal since 2009. Kind of a well-trodden path. Found it at university. Failed footballer. Wasn't good enough to do football, but found a love of futsal. Enjoyed it a lot more with all the high intense action you could get in the game, like all the good bits of football, but in a smaller court. I mean, anyone who's watching this probably knows what futsal is, so I don't need to say that. But that kind of got me into it. Had some great experiences early doors working with players who were around the England national team at that time. Players like Ben Mortlock, Curtis Holmes, Ollie Wheatley O'Neill. Really good players, and seeing that there was an achievable pathway to represent your country. So that really made sure to focus on futsal rather than trying to pursue anything in football. Um, and that kind of led me through Sheffield FC Futsal Club, who were linked to the football club at the time. They have since rebranded, gone a different direction, but some great people in that club. And then took me to Barcelona for a season as I was studying abroad. Not the Barcelona, some lower level team called Les Courts, who I trained with. Wasn't good enough to play with them, according to their manager. And then came back, played for Sheffield a bit more, and then did the kind of tour of all the teams. So Manchester, Helvetia, and then ended up at Bloomsbury, which was then Pro Futsal, sort of 4 years ago now. After a short failure in Italy, where I quit my nice job to go and chase the dream in Italy's second division, and then I got sacked. And that was also fun. But yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell the journey so far to where we are today.
So you've kind of seen the ups and the downs of the sports world, and what impacts athletes across all sports, right? Is there's good days and bad days, regardless of the performance. Sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, seeing it kind of in England, it's an amateur sport. In some clubs, there's been a little bit of money, but it's never been, enough to encourage players from kind of sixth, seventh tier of football to move across to futsal, unfortunately. And that's probably why you see the difference in abilities across different countries. Um, they'll have less footballers in their pool, but they'll have more futsal players. And then countries like, as we're going to be getting onto in a bit, Moldova in the football world, you wouldn't really see them as a challenge, but internationally, the last time they played England, they won 3-0. So they've got much more kind of experienced players with futsal compared to us as a nation. But that gap is changing slowly. So yes, so seeing it on an amateur side is one side of things. Seeing it professionally for a few months, even if it was that, it's really interesting seeing how the money is such a driving factor for some players and how it really affects others, and it is quite interesting. And then the Italian attitude to contracts is a bit more lenient, I would say, to what you'd expect legally. So they sort of play it with how they want to do it. If it's an agreement rather than a contract, that kind of thing, and that's happened to quite a few players. So great experience if you can get a good club, but there's a lot of bad people, a lot of bad clubs that you have to avoid somehow.
It's interesting you say that. I've got a friend that played as a goalkeeper in outdoor football for a Luxembourg side, and he mentioned some similar things. Is sometimes when you get into these smaller countries, or in our case, a niche sport, in the grand scheme of the global sports environment, there's not so much support from the organizations like FIFA that are, they're keeping an eye on bigger things than maybe us.
Yeah, they follow the money, unfortunately, and I think it happened to another couple of English guys. They've been out to countries. Ruben Santos did a great stint in France. I'm not sure how well he was supported by the club, but really good player in England. He could have definitely stayed there longer, I think, if they'd wanted him to. And I think Mikey Bulmer, I think he was linked with going to Italy, and then that sort of fell through in the end. I mean, I haven't spoken to them about their journeys, kind of that secondhand information, but it doesn't really surprise me that clubs offer what seems like a really good thing and then change their mind or don't follow through on it. Unfortunately, that's probably the stigma with English players. Whereas what you can see is if they're a Brazilian player, probably style of play as well, but that kind of tag does push a player through. I think that pedigree.
Makes sense, coming from a country that's just so honed in and focused on futsal as a part of their culture. I'm sure that just having that flag next to their name makes a big difference in the perception of what that player is going to be like and what they're going to expect.
Yeah, I mean, English is right at the bottom, right next to America. So we're in the same boat.
I think you guys might be one above us at least.
Well, you've got a national team at the minute, and I know your the last tournament, I think it was a couple of years ago, you did quite well. So
yeah,
you've got a bigger pool with the six-a-side players, right?
We do. We see arena soccer really big here in the States. So we're still seeing a lot of players come over from that, which is interesting. That side of the sport is certainly, in my opinion, has much better support and as far as infrastructure from their league than maybe what we see on the futsal side, where it's a lot of amateur satellite leagues across the country. So we certainly have a lot further to go to compare to maybe what your guys' futsal ladder looks like with the NFS and even the NFL now. But it seems on the international side, at least, we have a little bit more secure structure for the moment. I know you guys have seen some recent changes with real futsal people working on behalf of the FA to handle the sport. You guys see a difference in that?
Yeah, so obviously the England futsal coming in to manage the side of the futsal program for the FA. I'm not involved in any way. I know the people who are involved to an extent, but I don't have any sort of inside scoop on the information. What I mean, my opinion on it is only a good thing if you've got futsal people with the freedom and the authority to kind of drive the sport where they think it needs to be. Even if they make decisions I don't agree with, they're making decisions they'll learn and hopefully they'll improve their hearts in the right place. Seeing the under-19s come back was great. Obviously, that pathway is amazing, but you want to see the kind of senior men's and senior women's teams come out eventually as well. But no signs of those yet.
Yeah, and it seems it's been an up and down history for futsal in the UK as a whole. I know we talked with Darius Ruhi from Northern Ireland on Sunday, excuse me, and we had a conversation about that as well. You guys are starting to see some upside with the resurgence with the U19 team, but then you turn in the other direction and you see an organization like Wales that's really separated themselves from futsal. Uh, what kind of impact do you think that has on futsal as a whole from an international perspective?
I mean, it just shows you where futsal stands in the British Isles. If it's not football, rugby, or cricket, it's just been devalued because that's where they want people to focus. Whereas you look at Europe, they value all sports equally. They encourage more people to get involved. And because you have a better pathway to get to the top in all these sports, they're healthier nations, they're more enthusiastic about sport. In England, die hard for football, great, but in my opinion, it's not the most important thing in the world. I'd rather see people take an interest in volleyball, tennis, badminton, and sort of spread that a bit more. I think that'd be a better culture. But I think England as a culture, it just isn't geared towards that side of things. Unfortunately, it's an island. It has an island. Stay away. We do our things our way. We don't want to learn or be like anyone else. So it is what it is. Unfortunately, hopefully Wales will follow track with what the England program has done. I think they did that in the negative sense when the England program ended. Then the Wales one did. Hopefully they'll learn from a country like Northern Ireland. In terms of population, don't know if it's Northern Ireland or Wales with fewer, but Northern Ireland have stayed strong throughout, supported their players, and hopefully they'll benefit. I think the women's team, they got some really good results shown on BBC iPlayer. That's the kind of stuff that's going to inspire the next generation. I think why wouldn't you want that?
Absolutely. I think we see that with the Women's World Cup right now, especially. I see a lot of news articles coming out of Australia and how the culture has shifted a little bit with that World Cup, and more people are paying attention to women's football in Australia now. And you guys, of course, have seen a ton of success from your women's football program. I'd imagine that's inspiring a lot of young girls to carry that torch.
Hopefully. What can't be ignored though is uh, how much the FA control their budget for some of the things that you see them spending it on. And I absolutely agree we should be investing in the first teams, but I think to an extent where spend £2,500 on a coffee machine that prints a selfie. That's the kind of spending that you could spend a bit better. And I'd love to see the accounts. You should get Doug Reed on if you wanted to hear more about that. He's got a better eye for detail, but some of the portraits they purchase, the gigs they pay for, and all that kind of stuff is just crazy. To then say they don't have budget for these other sports that they have jurisdiction for. That being said, it's a step in the right direction with what they've done with the recent move.
Let's take a step back and focus more on your journey. Why don't you tell us about a day in the life of Wardy? What's your day look like, and when does futsal kind of impact that, and how's it changed over the years?
Well, there's been a big change this year since my son Rowan was born, so it's been a bit of an
Congratulations.
adaptation. Thank you very much. Um, so yeah, I mean, at the minute, waking up sort of 5, hopefully get to sleep again, get up about 7, look after him for a bit, and then the glory of COVID and working from home. So I work in a software company, kind of desk job, 9 to 5. Sometimes go to the office, and then training futsal twice a week, games on Sundays. Not going to the gym as much as I used to previously, so trying to work that one back into the routine. But trying to just keep fit at home, especially leading up to the Champions League with doing the workouts at home. So yeah, that's kind of me. Um, Other than futsal, really enjoy padel. If you've played padel, you've probably got pickleball, don't you? That's your equivalent right
Is
now.
it okay? I was going to ask you. I'm not familiar with that. I am with
It's
pickleball.
basically, yeah, it's, so what futsal is to football, padel is to tennis. It's all the good bits of tennis, but on a more concentrated court. It's kind of mixed with squash. If you check out some of the rallies on YouTube, it's a brilliant sport to play. It's an easier sport to pick up and have really good rallies compared to like tennis, where you need to have decent technique. Anyone can play it. It's brilliant. And again, it's one of those where it's huge in Spain, South America, just none of it in the rest of the world yet. But it's getting there,
Sounds like it's coming.
definitely.
Hopefully, just like our sport.
Yeah.
So how do you find the balance? You got a full-time job. You guys have a very successful club. I'd imagine your training schedule is almost like having two full-time jobs. How do you keep that balance, and how do you keep that mental health up through all that and not burn yourself out?
Yeah. I mean, firstly, without the support, love of the family, the wife Caroline and Rowan, he doesn't really understand yet, but he's okay with it. It wouldn't be possible. So there's a lot of sacrifice that goes into it. Um, but when we get to the club and everyone's together training, it's brilliant. You're with your mates. It's a really good atmosphere. Everyone's got the same objective, same goal. It's a really good culture, really good club to be a part of. So really lucky that we've had that at Bloomsbury. Basically playing with my mates. Went to my mate's wedding last weekend. I play with him, so it's that kind of atmosphere. Um, yeah, it can get tricky. I mean, it's easy when you're winning. I think the challenge is, if things go hard, we haven't really had that adversity yet for a sustained period. Whether or not we're good enough to kind of not never go through that, we'll see. But I think we do have good people in the team.
Well, let's talk about that a little more, because you guys have really had a meteoric rise this year. I jokingly reference when I'm talking England futsal that you guys are the true new royal family as far as futsal is concerned. Uh, you guys have really seen success from top to bottom. Uh, Bloomsbury runs a B and C team as well, and a women's team. All of them seeing great success. Can you talk a little bit about where that comes from, and what the culture is like?
Sure. So um, behind the scenes, again, not an area that I see on the daily basis, but I've seen a lot of the work that JK put in, founding what was Pro Futsal. and then integrating that with Bloomsbury. So again, with Charlie Hyman, very passionate. Not an easy job for them, but they definitely do put futsal first as much as they can with the constraints of running a charity and having to balance all of that. So you definitely do see and feel that they're doing what they can. And Juan Tapia-Owen's at the helm of the first team. That guy closes his eyes and he sees tactics boards. He's so passionate about the sport, knows everything, always keen to learn, try new things. And that just pays off his enthusiasm and his knowledge with the team. And again, he's still a young guy, so I think he's still learning how to get his ideas and methods across with English players, because we haven't grown up with futsal. What you see at the youth level is that those concepts and ideas go into those youth players. They get opportunities to train levels above because of that fantastic structure. So I'm not surprised to see that sort of success when the players who are getting the lower level, I've trained with them, 8, 9, 10 times this season. They're there to fill in if they want to. So those guys, not only on the court but off the court, mixing with sort of more senior people older than them, getting that experience, I think that will help them mature and learn hopefully the good values that we have. And I think that's going to translate onto on-court success. Hopefully, that's a model other clubs will be able to implement as well, having the different age groups, men's, female. And you do see that, especially Manchester's a great example. They've got a similar sort of setup, but at the minute we're winning the on the court stuff, so that's kind of where it matters right now.
Absolutely. Well, and like I mentioned, it's been victory all around. Can you talk to us a little bit about the success you guys saw in the regular season? You had the cup championship that you won, as well as the regular season and playoffs, correct?
Yeah, it was a bit of a wild one. I mean, the cup, I think it was tricky because I think teams do devalue it. They try and mix some of the squad players to play a bit more. Good and a bad thing. But I think with the schedule we had, it was hard for us to kind of get our best team out, especially during the qualifying rounds. Some meteoric games in there from the guys going and winning games with sort of 6 players, which isn't what you want, but the quality's there to do that. I mean, Connor Miller scored, I think, 9 goals up in Bolton on a tiny court to get us through the semi-final. But then once we got to the cup final, I think Manchester had a few injuries they were struggling with, and that I think what we've got over other teams is strength in depth. Kind of our first 12, any one of those players is going to get into any of the other top teams, and I think that really just translates into our performance with the intensity. And you sort of saw that in the final as well. Manchester sort of held back in the cup, but then for the league final on the Sunday, we started really well. They brought it back, but then I think we had the final depth at the end. I know a lot of the Manchester guys personally as well, so look, competed with them for a few years. Love competing with them. Really good players. Love to wind them up about it eventually, but I don't want to chat too much because it might come back to bite me.
That'll be a fun one to talk about over a drink at the pub, as opposed to this close to a new season right around the corner, right?
Yeah, I mean the focus is definitely Champions League, right? Manchester gave us a really good friendly pre-season, so like I said, really good club offering that. We played them, played Perth. Really good to go through the motions a little bit with the guys. Testament to them that they would offer that as well, and we would do the same. But yeah, can't wait to when I hang up my boots. I think got a few years left, but when I hang up my boots, then I'll get on to Edgy in particular.
There you go. A couple of targets, huh?
Yeah.
What's a team dynamic like with you guys? I mean, you guys had a full schedule because you continued to be successful in the league and in the cup. Tell me about the team and how the cogs work together. I mean, you probably have a unique position as captain, seeing all that and dealing with the personalities a little bit on and off the court.
Yeah, so I'm sort of like the evil dictator, and everyone's scared to talk to me. Basically, it's a rule with an iron fist approach. Not really.
Showing
It's
no weakness, right?
yeah, Russ Goldstein, sort of the team joker. In every possible sense, he's absolute heart and soul of the team. His energy in the change rooms before the game, some of the kind of, you just feel the energy coming off him before the game, and that you can't not be hyped with that. So he's key, crucial guy to the team. You've got Ollie Jones, he's becoming more and more central part of the team. Been with us for a few years now, and now really delivering big performances in a lot of our key games this season. Quite quiet. He's deceptively slow for getting the jokes, so he sort of somehow gets away from being abused too much. But when you get him on the sly, he's quite good. We've got a couple of new New Zealand boys making their way into the team as well, Logan and Geordie, as well as Kyle, who are really good guys. I mean, I think all of our foreign boys are really good. Really good chat. Just want to come and have a laugh and enjoy it. So that extends to people like Jared Basker as well, who's I think he's about 40 now, but he's still got the skill and the legs, and he's a good player. And signing Liam Palfreeman this season as well. He's a friend from a long time, and he's a bit of an outsider to this team because I think everyone's quite respectful and well behaved and nice mannered. And obviously, Liam coming in is a bit against that, so we'll have to see how he fits in. I'm trying to be PG enough just to get away with it. Who else have we got? Simo, when he does come out with stuff, which is very rarely, is always really interesting. Got the Walsh brothers, who are great. Ryan is always injured. You touch him with anything in training, he misses the session. He struggles with that. And then we've recently signed a huge big Brazilian guy, Vitor, and a huge big English Colombian guy, Camilo, which is quite an exciting couple of transfers. They're integrating quite well. Struggling to hear them speak much. Camilo just doesn't talk, and Vitor doesn't understand the language. So eventually we'll get through to them. Of course, Eddie as well. Talking meteoric rise, that's sort of followed his ascendancy into the first team and big moments. I travel a lot with Eddie to train in the last couple of seasons and seen him grow and gain confidence from making his kind of first proper appearance in the semi-final against Helvetia last year and being our man of the match, to then scoring the second goal in the league final this year. So seeing that development is great to see. And again, he's quite quiet, but when he does come out with stuff, it's reasonably funny. I've probably missed a few guys, but that's probably because they're boring. Calvin also, he's mainly playing football, but he's fantastic on the group chat. He's provides a lot of value there. So again, when I retire, I could probably get a gallery of memes that's been produced in there. But when I can't be tackled on the court, probably I'll release that.
Particularly in training this close to Champions League.
Yeah, exactly.
I know one of the things that really got me into English futsal was I found you guys 2 seasons ago on YouTube, and then the Twitter algorithm did its work, and I found Henrique and Vitor on the Futsalsa podcast, and have been following along with that. I know Henrique's close to the club. What's it like dealing with him, knowing that he's going to spill the tea at the end of the week on the pod?
I think he's done a fantastic job, to be honest. I mean, I had a really good pre-season with Henrique last summer, where I really got to know him because he was in the England under 19s for a while because he was playing at Reading and we hadn't crossed paths. But really got to know him a lot better. What motivates him, why he plays futsal, and really talented player. And I think he could go really far. I think he doesn't want to spend the time going to the gym, doing the sessions rather than doing something else. So the sky's the limit with him, really, but it's got to be what he wants. In terms of the pod, though, I absolutely love it. I mean, I get a lot of gas on there, so probably a bit self-centered, but I really enjoyed his waffle, and Vitor as well. He was really funny. So yeah, he brings good vibes to Enrique. Not seen him much this pre-season. Hopefully, see him a bit more. He had a really good season last season with Hearts. Also, big shout out to them when winning the Bucks championships. But I'd rather see him on the court with us. But he's got to work to get there.
Again, it kind of goes back to what we talked about to start things, right? Is sometimes the sport can be a cruel thing, and it certainly doesn't offer any free rides. It's if you're not giving 120% every single second, it can catch you.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the biggest things I think I've seen over my 10-year playing is the players who dedicate themselves to it, go to the gym, do the training. They're the ones who just have the success. Like it's no fluke.
So if I can get into your brain on that a little bit and just kind of understand a little more about your mentality and what's kept you in this game, you mentioned that it's still kind of amateur status as it stands right now in England. How do you keep that motivation high, knowing that outside of our circles, no one really knows what about your success?
Yeah, I mean, a big driver was the England program for a while for me. Um, putting in the work in during the week with the club, traveling up and down the country. It was all worthwhile to represent your country 10 times a season and have the family there. I think that's a really proud moment. So that really took a hit, I think, for a few of us once the program got canned. So it's been interesting, just kind of reworking it. Um, Jared always said to me once, what else would I do? You know, it's yeah, it's a great sport. What else would I do? It's 3 sessions a week, and I burn 2,000 calories. It's keeping me fit. So that's a simple one, but I think I just love playing the game. I think what would really push me on now is if the England program did come back. That I think would push me up an extra gear, because I think at the minute in this league, I don't need to go and do 3 gym sessions a week. In addition to the training and the other stuff, and that's really what you should be doing if you're going to be competing internationally. And that's what I was doing prior to it getting canned. But I've put the work in the past, and my body sort of dealt with it reasonably well. But if you compare that to Rayoni Medina, played until he was 50, incredible condition. Works in a Pilates studio, so it's really easy for him. But testament to him that he kept going for so long.
Holy
But
cow!
yeah, so yeah, it has to be. I think he was actually 40, but still, he looked really old. But yeah, it is hard. You need to put the work in, and I think having the best sessions possible, like 2 sessions a week. Compare that to amateur teams in Spain; they do 3 at least. I've got friends in Barcelona still, and in Escadona, he came over, did for a while, won the league with Birmingham, and basically the Midlands League, not the overall. But that was when Baku were playing and they were all professional. So if Baku didn't exist, I think his team would have done really well. They were dominant in the Midlands, but they were training 3 times a week. He came in and he said, "I know we're amateur, but I'll see you Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right?" But they make it more social. Like they'd go for a beer on a Friday night, which a lot of teams don't really build that social aspect in. Which I think is again is different to Spain, right? And the partners come as well. It is a different game, really.
They seem to have it. I hesitate to say really figured out, because I know there's still certainly some disruptions that are going on over there, particularly with their league, and maybe not seen eye to eye with the FA there. But as far as the passion, the culture, certainly when you're talking about some of the top leagues and destinations for futsal in the world, Spain's got to be in the conversation. Can you talk a little more about that experience for you?
Yeah, I mean, what really sold me on the sport was I've got a friend, Joan Agusti, who was playing at the time, and he brought me over to Barcelona. He said, "Look," because I was playing futsal with him in Sheffield. He said, "Look, just come over, bring your futsal shoes." Cool. I was like, "All right, well, have a little training session." I didn't really know what I'm doing, and like his English wasn't as good as it could have been, as it is now, and my Spanish wasn't as good as it is now. So I sort of understood each other. And then I got over here, and it was like, right, cool, put your shoes on, have a game, play the game, 20 minutes, have a beer, had a beer, have another game. And it was a 24-hour tournament. Have you come across 24-hour tournaments?
No, I have not.
So like you'd play a few games, that's your group stage, and then not a lot of teams take it more seriously than this group, but they were like players who played for Barca B, players who played in second division Spain, like really good players, but they would come and play for this team because they liked the chat, the camaraderie. They were like a really good group, so they could play drunk basically. So you'd have a couple of
Oh,
beers,
wow.
play another game, and I was there first time, 19 years old. I was dead. But you play this tournament, and I think we got knocked out in the semi-final or something like that. But it was amazing. Then at sort of 6 in the morning, you come back, play your next game, and then it goes on until sort of like 3 o'clock the next day. At which point,
Wow.
some people have gone home, slept, recovered. We just went out. So you come back and it's it. But they do it to like raise money for the club and stuff. So they'll do it in the pre-season. You can't imagine getting that through health and safety, in either of our countries. So, but there they
Work
just
hard,
love
play
it.
hard, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, improves your hand-eye coordination if you can kick a ball after 7 pints.
Yeah, no, that's a challenge.
Yeah.
Let alone run up and down the court.
Yeah. But yeah, it's great stuff. They call like a 24-hour tournament, and they do it like in Italy as well. They do it all over Spain, and like people pay 500 euros a team, and then the winner gets half the pot. The club gets half the pot, and that'll pay for their kit or their training sessions. Whereas in England, it's got to be sponsors or players paying subs. We don't have that kind of stuff yet figured out.
It's a little
Great
more
fun though.
corporate still.
Yeah, very by the book. Can't do anything health and safety wise. I don't know. We'll get there.
That's something that is a struggle here in the U.S. I think as well as it's always a chicken before the egg conversation when it comes time to who's going to invest in the sport. First we got to prove there's something there. All that chit chat that goes on in the corporate boardrooms, but uh, it seems like the clubs in England have some similar struggles to maybe what we have here, which makes it relatable to me as an American viewer. But I kind of like to imagine that you guys are a glimpse into our future and what's possible. You have some cool things like the BT Sport deal. It seems like the rel works really well for you guys, and we're seeing a league expansion for the next season. Uh, what do you think about what's the next big step for English futsal to kind of get there and really solidify things in the sport?
Yeah, that's a $1 million question, right? I
It
mean,
sure is.
to talk on a few of those things, though, like the cost of entry is so high, right? And I don't want to be boring and talk about the cost of a pitch, but if you can go to Spain and just walk onto an outdoor court and run a tournament and not pay anything, then you're already getting more money for the club. Whereas we just don't have that infrastructure. Um, I think the next step is what we've seen in futsal being so much more prominent in schools and stuff is when those kids come out and they're old and they start playing, they want to play futsal, and that drives more fans, more actual arenas and structure for people watching it just because they enjoy it, not because they're family members. Until you can get actual organic fans in, I think you're only going to go so far, sponsors and all that sort of stuff. So I think all we can do is play competitive games, do really well. BT looks amazing, looks better when there's fans there. So having them in games in London where people can go makes more sense than doing them, unfortunately, in the middle of the country where the finals where family and friends will go. But people off the street won't just come in and suddenly like that sport, then find their futsal team and grow it that way. So I think it has to be near a city centre as possible, and then get the fans in, and then hopefully get the national teams back and compete and get that on BT as well. Because I don't think we've ever had them on BT. It's always been Red Button or like basically some internet page linked to the BBC, and that was great.
What do you think is about the structure of the season last season? I think you guys all the teams went to a central location each weekend. Is that correct?
Yeah. It way back when it first started in this country, kind of 2006, that was the structure, and then they went to regional leagues, and then they went to one league. I'd I'd love to know what the KPIs are that they're measuring, why it'd be different. For me, it's annoying. I'd rather do a home game, and then if I have to travel, do the travel. Especially now with the kids, so it's a bit of a hybrid this year. There's some central venues, some home and away. Hopefully, it'll be better. I think ideally it'll be home and away with big fans and all that sort of stuff. But you know, some of the venues we've got aren't fit for purpose. But the way the camera work is brilliant. The slow mos, the commentary, that's absolutely grade A product. Like you can sell that, and hopefully there's good viewing behind it. But yeah, and also playing on nights when there isn't other sport. Like don't play on a Sunday when Prem football teams are playing. Play on like a Monday night maybe, if that's the best way to get audience. Because yeah, no one plays really on a Tuesday.
I think that's something that's interesting. Is I've Luke, who's usually here with us for the interviews, he couldn't be here today, but something we talk about all the time is the exposure and how do you balance the game day experience for the in-person fan compared to accessibility to try and grow the audience online, where you could potentially get the word out to much more people with the infinite possibilities of the internet. uh, so we've always kind of debated back and forth about that concept. uh, it seems like it would be easier to have that single camera set up and be able to film all the games straight. But on the other hand, the in-person fans, and in particular, you bring up an interesting point for the families that are trying to follow their favorite player, or maybe second favorite, depending on what that family's like. But it's interesting that it certainly puts a strain on the fan base, and I sometimes wonder if that would limit the growth within the country.
Yeah, yeah. No, I don't know which side of the fence I'd fall on, but one stat I did hear was that for the League Two playoff final, there was a team which was affiliated with the Chelsea football team, and the viewership for that was like 10 times the amount of any other. I think it's like 500,000 because people are Chelsea fans. They like the affiliation with Chelsea, and they watched it. And because we don't have the football link, that'd be incredible if we could just get that link. But Chelsea didn't want to support it because they weren't getting paid for whatever percentage for using their logo, even though it meant the world to futsal. They were nah. So that would have been incredible, having them in the first division. People would just put that on TV and watch for a bit, and they might like it, they might not like it, fair enough. But if they love it, great, they found the sport. I think that's not something that anyone can influence. That'll have to be the football teams, and eventually, whoever likes futsal, someone will have to figure it out. You could get someone like Eddie Hearn in, though. What he's done with everything he touches, make it more exciting. They try and do that, but yeah, I don't know, not my area.
What do you think about that? You guys got a couple of teams that have affiliations, correct? You have Chelsea, like you mentioned. I believe there's a Liverpool as well.
I don't know how. I thought Chelsea had stopped, and I think Liverpool. I don't know how close they are to the football team, but
Okay.
Maidenhead is recently affiliated with what was previously Reading.
Reading Royals, correct?
Yeah, and again, I don't know the details of that relationship, but when I first started working with Sheffield, playing for Sheffield FC, that was the first football team ever made. So there was a link there with the futsal team, and I think they provided kit and stuff like that. And that helps, but it only ever went so far because the Sheffield FC fan base is only so big. Whereas if you've got the Prem teams and they all have a team, but then I'm confused because I thought Germany were doing something similar. I don't know if you saw that.
I did. Yeah, I think their champion side, I believe, is tied to a third division Bundesliga team. So I'm curious about that. And it's you see some of them here and there. I know in Spain you see, of course, Barcelona being the big one. You know, I I'm just curious how that would work if they would see some of the same issues where, hey, we're a part of the organization, but we don't bring the same money the football club does, so we don't get a lot of attention. Or, like you said, just having that name in the title, does it bring eyeballs?
Yeah, and I don't see what the risk is from a football club's perspective. Maybe you have to pay to give them the kit. What else? Maybe you give them some money to train. But these teams are running self-sufficiently today. I think even with Bloomsbury, I'd be interested in like Arsenal. Just be Bloomsbury Arsenal or something where you wear the kit and then Arsenal fans would watch. It would just make sense for all parties.
Yeah, you'd think so. It's kind of a give and take at that point, and a
Yeah.
very low investment price.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's definitely interesting. Let's before we get on to the Champions League stuff, let me ask you a quick question about the league. Like I mentioned, the league is going to expand a little bit this year. Can you talk a little bit about um, how you guys are planning for that on top of having to think about Champions League before that? Is it even a thought in your mind?
No.
That's the easy answer.
I mean, if we talk about the quality of the league, I'm hoping that the teams are going to compete. I think what we saw last season is any teams getting hit for double digits. Those aren't the games you want to be playing week in, week out. You want to be playing the games where it's 4-3, 2-1. That's the only way we're going to make each other better. One team absolutely running rings around the other. It doesn't help the league. It doesn't help the players who are having to travel up and down the country to get absolutely tonked. So I have no interest in having more teams in the league who are going to get battered. I'd rather they consolidated their players and got the best players and had a stronger league. We'll see how it goes.
That's the interesting thing too. Is another discussion that I wish Luke was here for, but and I'm not bashing him for not being here. For the record, guys, I'm just
I
saying,
don't like him. I'm glad he's not here.
I'll give him that later. But I we talk about that too. Is sometimes you got to go slow to go fast, and it's not like the National Futsal Series is adding teams every season or anything, but I think that something we see here stateside is people are so uh, excited about growing the sport that sometimes they grow too big and it's just not enough quality. It's all quantity. So I think this league will be an interesting measuring stick for that for you guys.
Yeah, uh, I agree. Like I said, it's been central venues, it's been by region, it's been back and forth. So, I like I said, also said, I don't mind them trying new things, but as long as they realise if the teams are crap, then they don't play again in that league to keep the quality high. I'd rather have a shorter season, but better fixtures for me as a player. Um, whether or not that equates to fan base, we don't have enough fan base to to even measure that. I don't think yet, but yeah.
Well, speaking of that level of quality, let's get right into the good stuff, which is you guys have Champions League play right around the corner. You guys are traveling to Greece, to Athens,
Yep.
and you are playing. I believe it's Dukas
Hmm.
and BSC Nistru from Moldova,
Yep.
and then you have Blue Magic from Ireland.
Yep. They're first up on Wednesday,
First match
two
is
two
the
p.m.
the Ireland match.
Yep. Blue Magic.
First
Yep.
question is there any way to follow you guys on this journey as far as game streams? Is there anything that our fans here at Futsal News should be following to follow your journey?
Sure thing. Tune into YouTube. I think a team's name search will work. I'll be sure to share the link with you, Jake, and you can get out there as well. Or follow the Bloomsbury Twitter or Instagram page. We're gonna have some really cool social media out there. I hope. We've got a guy come with us who's got some good skills, so we'll see that. But yeah, so they'll be streaming all the live games, I think.
That's incredible. That'll be great for you guys to get some additional exposure, I would imagine.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, there's games there from previous seasons. It's the same host, so typically they do stream them all.
What do you think about this group? What's your prep been for the group and what's your thoughts on the competition?
Tough group. Tough group. We've got champions of Ireland, Greece, Moldova. You don't get any average team winning their national competition. I think the order of fixtures probably works out well for us. You'd expect the Greek team, the hosts, to probably be one of the favourites. So having a game first to get used to the competition format against Ireland, I'd have taken either of them first, but really good opportunity to play against them. They've got a lot of videos on YouTube as well, so it's been possible to do a good bit of analysis. Um, they've obviously been here before. We haven't. They've got experience in that level. They're quite an experienced team anyway. So I think we'll have to be absolutely on our game if we're going to get anything out of any of these games anyway. I was sort of saying to some of the guys, if we're going to get a result, we need to be getting every player eight out of 10 performance, and then one guy does a 9 out of 10. That might get us over the line because it's going to be hot, intense, new atmosphere, pressure, stress. Like the winning the league is one level, but this is the next level. So I think part of our job is to make sure every player knows that. But like I said, the four team we've got are incredible players. Like I've never been more confident going into this level of competition than with this squad. Boys are brilliant. So been okay prep. I think we could have done better. If we look at, people have lives. We're an amateur sport. Not everyone's been able to go to every session. I think that could have been a lot better, but that's something we can look back on. Juan, like I said, he'll dot all the I's, cross all the T's. So I'm not going to reveal too much around game plan or anything like that. But we've been through it. I think we're ready. Final friendly against Maidenhead Sunday. Thanks again to them for coming up. But we're going to get some final prep done there before heading out Tuesday for the game on Wednesday. Dukas, I think, will be absolutely, players will have to play the best game they've ever played. Absolutely bring it, and I'm sure we will. But they've signed a couple of Brazilians from one from Magnus, another from I'm not sure which team he's come from, but again they've put it all over their socials if you're interested. And again, loads of footage from them from last season. So really, really good opportunity against them. I think that'll be a really, really close game. Hopefully, we can stand up and make the third game worth it. Obviously, if we get smashed in both games, we'll be going out heavily on the Friday or whenever it is, and then won't worry about the last game. We'll drink our sorrow. But no, I mean, regardless, the last time I played against the Moldova team, I got beat 3-0. So I really want to beat them as well. But it's 3 cup finals. We go into each one. Got to respect each team. Prep as much as you can, and then each player's just got to bring it.
Just a reminder to the chat, if you guys are just jumping in and you have any questions for Wardy, we're here with Richard Ward. He is the captain from Bloomsbury Futsal, and we're talking about his journey to the Champions League here at the end of the month. And we've been talking to him about Bloomsbury Futsal as well. So if you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to chime in the chat, be a part of the conversation. But in the meantime, you mentioned the film that's available. Is that a big part of your guys' prep, or is it more, and I know we're not going to talk about the strategy, but is it more getting the running time in on the court and getting familiar with how you guys are going to enter this tournament is your identity?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a pretty good team ethos on our strategy anyway. So, I mean, if I was the opposition, I'd have seen some of our games that are all over YouTube, and I'd think about some strategies to counter that. So we have to think about that as well. You know, it's double bluff kind of situation. But we should know that. I think, you know, going in with the video analysis always helps. But some players it works. Some players the might just get in their head. They don't want to see it. It depends. I think that the hardest bit is understanding if you're a young player what works for you. Do you need to study, know the player's birthplace, know that he eats beans on a Tuesday, that kind of thing? Or can you go in, clear your mind, and just play your game and trust that you're good enough and you can get that flow state and do your performance?
What's that look like for you? Where do you find your balance in that?
I like talking to players and them telling me what they've seen. I'm not very good at judging a player. Like Brian Griffin joined us a couple of seasons ago, and I saw him and I was like, nah, that guy's crap. He was our best defender by a mile until he lost his knees. Another guy, Jack Fosbury, he came into training goalkeeper. He looked awful, but I was actually right with that one. He's actually terrible. But he is he's a decent musician. So Millennial Waste of Air available on Spotify. Give that one a listen. Don't watch him play futsal. But yeah, I like the chat. You know, people like Ryan Walsh, Eddie Amarim, played with those guys for a couple of years now. You know, speaking to them, what can I do for them? There's a pivot. How should I be linking in? You know, those little details I really enjoy. Like if you've ever read one of Kobe Bryant's books about how he analyzed players and the little details he looked for there, incredible, must read book if you're kind of trying to improve your game. But you talk about things like, you know, this player, when he receives it, he always receives it on the back foot. So I know he's going to do a pump shot. So I think when you watch players, if you're that way inclined, you look at, does he receive it on the front foot, or he always receives it on the back foot, and he always cuts it onto his strong foot. If you know that going into the game, then you can get extra aggressive, pinch the ball. So, you know, I'll talk to players, but do a little bit of that. But for me, game day, just got to find the zone really. So got a pretty good routine that I've been using for a while now, in terms of like thought process, going into it, getting changed out there in the warm up, what I need to feel like to be in the zone.
Quick question from the chat. This one comes from Russell. What is your pre-match meal?
It depends really. Like in Greece, I won't really have much control over the food, and again, depends on the time as well. If it's lunch, if it's you've had dinner already, depending on the time of day. Typically, you've had a main meal, so you'll have like a snack going into it, like fruit, cereal, yogurt, just to give you that final little boost of energy over the line. But you know, pasta, chicken, that kind of stuff. When I'm at home, going up and down the motorways, it can just be a meal deal from from the supermarkets. I try to avoid the fast food until after the game, but you know, it's not the easiest way to stay healthy going up and down the motorways, service stations.
Well, I am not playing anywhere near your level. Let's start there. But I'm kind of with you on that. Whenever I have any kind of physical activity, whether it be a pickup game or or my Sunday beer league, I can't eat a big meal before the game. It's got to be a power bar at most. But afterwards, it turns into a bit of a feast.
I want to hear more about the Sunday Beer League. What's this Sunday Beer League about?
Oh,
Is this the same
just
sort
a
of thing?
rec league.
24 hours beers.
Not quite like that. Just a rec league locally for us old guys that are out of shape and don't want to give it up just yet.
Cling to the dream.
Exactly. It's our safe space. But I actually, it's funny. There's another team that's there that we've played against for years and years, and they actually pack beers for after the game and have a little tailgate afterwards in the back. And it's always funny watching my teammates go by as I'm hanging out with them and get yelled traitor, as
I'd be with those guys. Those guys sound
yeah.
great.
I think I'm the smartest of my group. I'm the only one over there, so come on, guys. It's an easy Sunday.
Yeah.
Stuart Cook with a question. I don't know if this might be targeted at me too. I don't know, but when does the hairline start to struggle?
So Cookie's in the inner circle. He knows these kind of questions.
He's cheating. He's got the answers.
Yeah, you should get him on. He knows my hairline's already struggling.
I'm right there with you, man. Don't worry.
So yeah, I've got Liam Palafreeman doing this line. I've got Eddie Amarim going up this way, and they're going to cut in the middle somewhere around my pivot. But yeah, you should get Cookie on. He's as old as time. He's probably England's best ever futsal player. If you don't know him already.
Oh no! Oh well, Stuart, welcome, man. I didn't know we had royalty in the chat. I wish I would have cleaned up a little better before he got
Yeah,
here.
he is royalty. He's got a few great clips you should watch. That one of the main newspapers over here did an article on him. Like, should he be in the England team? And it's got him basically destroying people's lives. He's some dirty nutmegs. He nutmegged a Prem footballer as well with a Rabona for a goal. That clip's
Oh
kind of
no
gone
way!
viral on the TikToks, I believe, and all
That's
that social
incredible.
media stuff. Yeah, he likes to remind you about it as well. Very humble.
Humble guy. That's a good trait.
Yeah.
Especially in sports. Another question from the chat. From your perspective, this is another question from Russell. What is your dream five-a-side team?
That's a good question. I'll answer it as a futsal team, not a five-a-side team, because I'm going to be pedantic like that. Well, to be fair, I had a pretty good five-a-side team at my friend's wedding the other day. Cookie, you'd be in. You've got to have Cookie as the fix. Am I allowed to put myself in, or do I have to be the manager? I'd love to play with Cookie again in his prime.
I'll tell you what. Let's do that, and then let's do an honorable mention. So we'll put you in.
Okay.
If you had to manage,
I'll pick a better player than me. So I'll do players I've played with. So Cookie's in there. I think Ben Mortlock as well. He gets in. He was my first skipper when I joined Sheffield FC. So dynamic, up and down the court, great leader. I mean, talk about Cookie skills as well. Unbelievable 1v1 player, leader, knows the game. Absolute tactically, he would make me play well just by telling me where to go, which not a lot of players have that skill. And when he did have a little bit more pace, unbelievable 1v1 player. Probably only bettered by Argon Rexer in his prime when he was captaining Baku. Probably the closest we've had to like a real actual player in terms of he could have gone played Spanish First Division comfortably. I mean, Cookie probably would have done, but Argon had both feet, tactically incredible. In net, I don't really like keepers, but probably. I mean, I've played with some amazing keepers. To be fair, I played with Curtis Holmes, who was England's joint number one with James Dalton for a while. I used to train with him and the Finnish number two in my first ever season training. I didn't score a goal in training for like 2 seasons. It was insane how good these guys were. But yeah, I think recently Johnny Sims getting his way in there just for his big performances and some of the stuff he can come out with now, because he's such a quiet guy, but when he does actually talk, it's actually quite funny. So we'll get him in there as well. Honourable mention, I'll probably put, who's the best pivot? I mean, Rayoni being an incredible pivot, but I actually can't have him in my team. So we'll go for, I'll go Conor Miller, bang him in there. get some different countries in there.
I like it. Connor Miller being from Northern Ireland, I believe, correct?
Well, yeah, one of Darius's boys, but he plays for us at the minute. He's not a futsal player. He's just a goal scorer and a winner. I just love his attitude. He lives and breathes this stuff. He's currently doing, I think, a 4-hour round trip to train with us.
Oh
So
wow,
yeah, he's putting the hours in.
good for him. That is dedication.
Yeah, he's
Wow.
nuts.
Well, let me ask you this, because this is an interesting thing that maybe is most relatable to Americans from like some state rivalries. Is there a bit of a rivalry amongst the UK countries and does it bleed into the banter as you guys are on the court?
I mean, I think the only time we've lost to one of the other countries was the second home nations against Wales. So Wales have had a result against England, but the rest haven't. Yeah, it's been okay wins for England, I think, in each instance. Hopefully, the prep Northern Ireland have had will have brought them up a few levels um, from where they've been. I think the last time we played at St George's, sort of 6-4, getting closer and closer. But there's a bigger player pool, I think, in England. The Welsh league, if you speak to the Welsh lads, it's not where it needs to be. I know some guys are trying really hard to kind of get more people playing and stuff. I think where it should be is probably, if we are doing a national league, include Scotland and Wales, get the best teams from there. We're basically doing that travel anyway. I'd rather that than have some extra English teams who are going to lose by 10 goals. So um, yeah, I mean everyone's really friendly, to be honest, in futsal. I don't know of anyone who hates me. I don't hate anyone else really passionately. Now a few of the Northern Irish guys, they're all good. Welsh guys, I'd encourage them to be successful really, rather than want them to lose or anything. Um, Likewise with the Scott. Don't really know any Scottish guys, to be fair. But they're always sound, like a Scot.
That's fair. I
Yeah,
know, like
I
here,
mean,
you would never. Typically, I kind of break the mold a little bit on this, but I'm from the state of Ohio, and typical rule is we don't mix well with people from Michigan. Uh, I'm wearing my Michigan team today. Oh, hitting the wrong just side of the chest there. But I've got some friends up in Grand Rapids, so I'm kind of the exception to the rule. But was curious how that translated to your guys' side, or if it's even more a city to city thing. And like you said, there's really not room in futsal for negative thoughts on people, or with it being such a small community, but certainly it creates some good banter on and off the court.
yeah. I mean, I think they're probably more club rivalries, but even then, you know everyone, like so it only goes so far unless you've got real beef.
How does the
Just
club
trying to think.
rivalries look for you guys, especially with some of the shakeups we've seen over the last year or two?
Yeah, I mean, Helvetia one was fantastic last few seasons. Had some really good games. Um, I think Manchester games have been really good as well. The Manchester one, I think, has been a bit more kind of friendly rivalry. Like we have really competitive games, but it's not really ever heated over too much. And the Helvetia ones have been bubbling along, which is great to see. But yeah, a lot of the players have flip flop between the two teams, so it's not like you don't know those guys and you come out, but the games are fierce and combative, which is good to see as well. The Loughborough games, Loughborough guys are always absolutely up for any game, so they're always bring the fight. But I think their team's lost a lot of their players this last season, so I'm not sure what they're going to look like next year. Um, Bolton probably the one stepping up into the mix now. They've made quite a few interesting signings, so keen to see where they land. Other than that, I don't know. I mean, yeah, like I said, we need better quality in the league.
That's something I found interesting. Is I think two of your players last year had transferred over to Helvetia after the Rants takeover, and then now you see a transition back in the form of Camilo right before Champions League. It's interesting because it's a lot of the same faces and maybe some different jersey colors, but I'd
Yeah,
imagine that adds an
Liam as
extra
well.
layer to things.
Yeah, I mean, like Charlie and Diogo, like I wanted them to stay. They didn't talk to me before they left. They just decided to leave. Um, so wish them all the best. I think they thought they'd be more successful in that team. So you go, you shake hands. Charlie came to my wedding. I'm good mates with him, so it can never get too spicy. But then in the first semi-final game, he absolutely smashed me in the game. I was terrible. He was bullying me, but then that gave you the fire in the second one where I think we got the upper hand. So yeah, I mean, I think it'll be a good competition. I'm just trying to think, like, in the past, I think there's been more heated rivalries where you leave a few more challenges in and stuff. But I don't know. For my side, that's bubbled down. Maybe I'm just a bit more boring these days, and all the younger guys are doing it. I just don't see it.
It's funny how over the years I've certainly gone through this as well. Is some of the things that got you heated don't quite do so anymore. It's still annoying, but doesn't quite get you as fired up.
Yeah, have I mellowed? Is that what you're telling me? My old
I think
age.
that kid might have mellowed you out a little bit. I don't know.
Probably, yeah.
I know my daughter certainly did that for me. I got a little
Yeah.
2-year-old in the house, and uh, yeah, living with that controlled chaos of a toddler certainly changes your mindset on some other things that affect you in the rest of your life.
Let's kick it into place now. Yeah, makes sense.
I got a quick question for you, kind of going back to Champions League a little bit. Uh, what are your expectations? You mentioned the level of play. Can you tell me, for maybe our viewers that aren't familiar with the European scene, you mentioned England being at an amateur status. Where does Greece and Moldova and Ireland fall in that ladder? Are they semi-pro, pro, on level with you guys at the amateur status?
Oh yeah. So I couldn't comment for Ireland what their structure's like. I don't know anyone who's played there. But I think they've had the same sort of core group of players for a few years. So they have a system. They clearly train together. They know each other's games. So yeah, I think they're clearly very passionate. I don't know if they're getting paid or not, but that very well organized team. Um, Moldova, just to talk about kind of how a professional team would work. To pay someone money to play futsal, I think you have to pay for their house, for their food. The cost of doing that in Moldova is a lot less than England. Like if you were going to pay for someone to live in England, a room in a shed in a bin is about £800 a month, whereas that would stretch a lot further in different countries. So the ability to have professional teams here is a lot harder. So Moldova, I'm pretty certain they're professional. I know their skipper who plays for Moldova as well, who's the skipper for Moldova. Don't think he is for the team, but he is for the national team. He's played in Romania, other bordering countries where they do have a very strong league. So they've got a few players who, if they haven't played that level, they'll at least be covering a decent wage relatively for their country. Greece paid a couple of big Brazilians to come over for the tournament. They'll be a bit spicy. I know when Rob Ursel went out to Cyprus a few years ago to play professionally, I think it's a sort of similar structure where they'll kind of subsidize the futsal with a spare job, so they'll help you have that kind of way of living, so that you do focus on futsal, maybe with a little bit of a side hustle. So I'd expect those Greek players to be training 4 or 5 times a week, getting paid, play a game on a weekend.
So that creates quite a bit of perspective as far as when you talk about Bloomsbury needing to come with that 8 out of 10 level to keep up. I mean, there is a very legitimate reason behind that, because some of these other uh, champion clubs from their respective countries are playing in a lot more competitive league and dealing with a much more competitive environment than maybe what you're seeing at the domestic level right now.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've got 14 of the best players in this country going with us to the Champions League, who can all give us 6, 7 out of 10 comfortably. And we all need to step up a few extra gears, get absolutely flying, and then with our depth, that'll be our strength. Because one player comes on completely differently. Whereas the other countries, they'll have their favorite 5, 6, 7 players, because that's where you can invest the money. You're not going to pay that much money for all your players, but then the trade-off is they'll be fitter, so they can last longer. So it'll be interesting to see how it lands.
Something that had kind of come up with Darius on Sunday when we were speaking to him. I brought up how this preliminary round is very interesting because you literally have the full spectrum of futsal in a massive preliminary competition. You have teams like Sparta Belfast, some amateur status clubs truly on the ladder, and then you have some teams like Riga Futsal, who are of course making waves on social media right now with the signing of Ricardinho, Serginho coming over from Anderlecht, and even seeing some talent coming up from Argentina. Uh, when you see that kind of stuff and you're Wardy waiting for the draw and knowing there's going to be that kind of competition in the league, what's going through your head and what are you hopeful for in that draw?
I want to play the best teams. I want to prove ourselves against the best teams and qualify. I think if people look at this draw, and we've avoided some of those teams who've paid money for big players. I think it's a blessing and a curse. You saw when Helvetia signed Ari, he's past his prime, but he plays a lot of minutes. That can have a detrimental impact on a team if he hasn't trained, if they don't know that system. So yeah, obviously incredible player, but doesn't have that explosiveness that they once had. So looking at Ricardinho's games, and I'd love to share a court with him. Probably too late now, but be amazing to play against him. But is he fast enough? Is he sharp with the ball? Yes. Can he defend? Be great to see. Serginho, I think, insanely sharp as well. But yeah, I think this is a really good draw for us. Athens is great, but I've got some friends coming out. My wife's going to come out as well. Can leave the son behind for the first time, which will be a bit nerve wracking. But they're going to come out and support. So I think it's a great holiday destination for her. So I couldn't have got a better one really in the draw.
There you go. Makes explaining the next expectation on your futsal job a little easier with the missus, right?
Yeah, well, hopefully she can get a flight to Italy booked in a few weeks if this all goes well. So the big motivation there as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, that'd be really nice.
Yeah, got to qualify first though. I think we've got Italy would be the hosts, and then I can't remember the other two. One of them's obviously a group winner.
So, are you guys even thinking about next steps at this point as far as the next stage, or is it just the job at hand?
No, 3 cup finals, Ireland first. Got to win that game, otherwise it means nothing. So that's the focus. Next season doesn't matter. Obviously, we can talk about it a bit now, but as soon as we get together in the airport, I mean, players I'm sure are already in that zone. It has to be the focus.
And what do you think about some of the struggles that are come along with that travel? You mentioned the dynamic of what that looks like within the country. How does that change things in your mindset getting ready to travel to Greece?
I mean, I think we've got 10 internationals in our team, so they've done that travel. The young guys who are coming in who haven't have either been in the under 21s and so have therefore done the travel, or they've got good mindsets. They've got enough players around them to help them with that. Um, yeah, I've got no concerns. I think we'll prep well. We'll help. It'll just be a laugh, like I said, good lads. Hopefully, you can get them playing some cards and get them off their phones, and it's just a holiday, really.
A working holiday.
Yeah, with 9 points.
That's the next thing I want to ask you too. Is looking at the history, I don't believe an England club has made it through yet the preliminary round, correct?
Correct.
But we've Helvetia's been close a few times, as I recall.
Yeah, they've missed out on best runner-up last time out. I think on goal difference, they had 2 wins out of the 3. You've obviously got Baku, who were when they were professional had invested a lot, and they made it to the main qualifying round. I think they lost to Barcelona 5-1. I think they drew a game and then maybe lost the other game, but they did amazing to get there. Argon, the player I mentioned, he walked out in the mini Palau at the against Barca. What an incredible game that was to watch. Yeah, no one's made it yet. I think there was a stat as well. I don't know if you shared it about the or maybe it was Jamie Farley about there's only been 2 British managers to have won a game as well. So obviously we've got Juan or John, whatever you want to call him. He's going to try and beat that. Hopefully in this one tournament. There's a lot of motivations. Whether or not anyone's made it through before, I'm not really bothered. I think, like I said, three cup finals. That's the laser going to be laser focused, and then whatever happens, happens.
Do you think that creates a bit of a measuring stick for you guys going into this contest, knowing that you've been so close a few times as being represented as an England club through the other teams, and we can be the ones that hammer at home?
I'm sure it is for some people. Um, not bothered. I think if we don't do it for ourselves, I'll be more disappointed because we deserve to be there. Firstly, we've signed well, we've trained well. I think we need to work hard and show that we deserve to qualify.
Well, I wish you guys the best of luck. I'm really excited to see how you guys show out and followed you guys through the regular season through the YouTube stream. So looking forward to continue to do that and see it at the next level for you guys. I think it's going to be exciting.
Awesome, thanks. What's the celebration?
Oh, that's a good question. What should be the celebration? We'll have to get back on that. Keep an eye on Twitter.
What's the Sunday Beer League celebration?
Oh, I don't score, so I don't have one. I'm a distributor.
Dish out. Michael Bradley.
There you go. Yeah, yeah. Slightly more hair, but yeah, that's. Well, I've got one more question for you before we wrap things up. I've taken up so much of your time, and I really do appreciate it. But if I could throw one more at you, um, we actually asked Henrique and Vitor this too, and it's kind of my keystone question for every interview. I'm always curious about what people think about the future of futsal. And my question for you is if you had the keys to the castle and you were making the decisions in England, what would you change, or what would your focus be to grow the sport in the country?
It's easier to destroy someone's idea than to create your own, I think. So I'm first to criticise, but I mean, my suggestion would be to centralise it in London, where you can actually build a fan base within walking distance without having to go to the middle of nowhere to get fans in. I think, I mean, it'd be easy for me because I live here, but I think that would make it, more accessible. Have the cameras there. I think investing more into the women's game as well. You've seen that with the football. There's no reason we shouldn't be having the same amount of investment on both sides. But then obviously the challenge is the women have to step up and have more teams competing. And unfortunately, I think a team had to drop out this season. That can't happen if they're going to do it. So take away the lower level of the money that's in the lowest levels of football, put that into futsal somehow, and I think it'll be used a lot more wisely. But yeah, other than that, get your kids playing it, go support a team, follow who your favorite players are, watch videos, enjoy it. Like, people who are passionate are passionate. It only takes seeing a sport a few times, I think, to convince someone. So yeah, keep believing.
I can certainly attest to that, particularly the last bit, because I was introduced to futsal late as an adult, and I caught the local team that we had started right before COVID. So unfortunately, it's a short history, but uh, it only took one game, and I fell in love with it. And we started a supporters group to support it, and tried to bring other people to the sport and bring a certain kind of energy that was. This is the tough part, probably, but keeping it friendly, but also keeping a high energy level with some chants and things. And it's easy to fall in love with this sport. It's just about finding people and getting them to see it.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, Wardy, thank you so much for making time. I know with a little one in the house, that's damn near impossible. So I greatly appreciate your time. Before we sign off, is there anything that you want to plug as far as social media so we can follow you on your journey?
Yeah, jump over to the Bloomsbury Futsal account, Twitter, Instagram, some great social media there. Follow the players. Some guys are absolutely on it, love it. Connor Miller gets it in the neck for only posting futsal and no family pictures. So head there if you want to see him score some spectacular goals, because he does do some. I'm not really on it at the minute, but yeah, follow this channel if you're not already following the channel. Follow the Futsalsa podcast. Enrique and Vitor come out with some good stuff. There might be some changes happening in that podcast, I've heard as well. So watch that space.
Oh, that's a potentially ominous foreshadowing, huh?
I'm gonna kill Enrique.
Takeover, right? Hostile takeover.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, I want to thank all the viewers that tuned in for this. Thank you guys very much, and for the kind words. We're getting a lot of well wishes to you, Richard, here in the chat. And just like you said, if you guys like this kind of content, please like and subscribe to the channel. We'll continue to push this out. Usually, if we don't have a guest, you can at least listen to Luke and I do a cheap version of the Futsalsa pod and do a little waffle. But in the meantime, also follow the Futsalsa podcast if you're interested in English futsal. Those guys put a really fun spin on things, and it's an easy way to get familiar. And then, of course, I put Bloomsbury Futsal's information inside the description of this video. So you guys can click the links directly from there and follow a team I'll certainly have my eye on during the Champions League preliminary round. So with that in mind, Richard, again, thank you very much. And to the rest of you, until I see you next time, don't forget to play with your soul.
Cheers, Jake.